Welcome everyone to this edition of Zero Events. We're happy to be welcoming Emily and Austin from the Wild here to talk about. I mean, first kind of present. They'll explain what the flow is going to be, but to kind of present the platform, take some questions, and show us a bit how it works in live demonstration. So on that note, Emily, please, or Austin, whoever's launching off, go ahead, take us away. Happy to have you both.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited to present the Wild to a group of VR enthusiasts. So, excuse me, my name is Emily Oster. I head up sales at the Wild.
And I'm Austin. I am on the marketing team, content marketing manager with the Wild.
So what we thought we would do today is take you guys through basically like a standard presentation of the Wild. What that typically looks like is we'll just spend a couple of minutes going over a high level presentation slide deck type of scenario. And then what we'll do is we'll jump in and actually take a look at the application itself. So we'll look at the desktop version, and then Austin will go into VR and show you how the application works, and then hold and do like a Q&A basically at the end. So I suppose without further ado, we can go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Oh, maybe I need to give, probably I need to screen share. Should be okay now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm just gonna do my whole screen, I think. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so what is the Wild? So the Wild is a collaboration platform that allows users and teams to meet together in VR and really experience their designs and their ideas at scale immersively. So, one of the things, or one of our, big touch points and tenets at the Wild is this notion of remote collaboration. And that will be one of the things that we, definitely show you and talk to you about when we go into the demonstration. But this idea that, a VR experience is really going to be best when you can do it with other people and when you can ideate on those designs in real time, across the world, really, with your teammates, and communicate that design intent, in a really seamless manner. So the workflow that we'll go over with you all today, and really where, because there, as you guys, or as we were talking about at the beginning, you've had spatial in here, you have all had experience with some of these other like VR platforms. The Wild is really, if I was to say which lane do we go down, or which lane are we operating in, it's this notion of designing around a common space. So typically the users that we are marketing to and selling to are architects or other spatial designers that really want to be able to view their 3D designs at scale immersively in VR. So having a workflow that makes it really easy to bring in any sort of 3D models, whether they be from Revit or SketchUp or some other format, and being able to, again, view that 3D content directly in the Wild in VR. One of the things that I'm super excited to be able to share with you guys today is a feature that we released this week called Tours. Tours is just going to, it'll allow you to identify points within a space, and then take users that are in the space, or guests that are in the space with you, on a guided tour that's based around various focal points. What this is going to allow us to do is really just hone in on our ability to tell a story and tell a story visually, again, by being able to be immersed in the space with your colleagues or teammates. So when we're pitching the wild to some of these architecture firms, it's really about the ability to not only make design decisions more quickly, but be able to fundamentally create and produce better design through collaboration. So, it's not just a notion of, hey, I actually wanted this wall to be concrete and not, brick. It's really this notion that not only are you going to, again, catch those design mistakes, but you're going to, for all intents and purposes, create better design because you're going to have multiple people really working on those visions together. So as far as content sharing and management within the wild, it is a cloud-based platform. Everything happens in real time. So you guys will see when we get into the demonstration, if we were to change something in one of the various projects or bring in an asset or something like that, all of the users that have access to those projects will have access to those new assets. So what that does is just really make it, again, easy and seamless to share content within VR. No emailing spreadsheets back and forth or anything like that. The spaces all exist persistently as well. So if you make a modification in a space or make a change, those spaces or all those changes will exist within that space, forever or until you change them. And then it's a real-time, again, collaboration platform. So as you'll see when we hop into the demonstration, Austin will hop in, he can go in and bring me in when he's ready to bring me in, and then we can do all of that collaboration in real time, regardless of, if we're across an office from each other or across the country or even across the globe.
I'd like to jump in just to make a statement that one of the core design principles of the wild is this idea of everything that you see, I see as well at the same time. So whereas some existing VR collaboration apps have user interface you only see, when we get into the wild, you'll see that we share all the menus, we see all the tools that we're working with at the same time, so that there's that transparency that feels like the physical presence together.
Thanks, Austin.
That's a fascinating thing that you just brought up, actually, because I only know of Neos that allows that. You can switch on and off that. That's the only other platform I know that really shares your menu. And I think yes, as you said, it's if you're working with someone and they don't know exactly the process, or you're walking them through a specific process, being able to reference the same visual is so essential for that. I'm really happy that you pointed that feature out, because it's a rare feature, and I do think, from my observation, it's quite valuable in collaboration. So I just wanted to highlight the relative uniqueness of that feature.
Yeah, it's based around transparency from start to finish of every workflow. Everyone can see what's happening along the way.
And what's really also unique about it, someone, coming from myself, before I started before I started at the Wild just about a year ago, I was very new to VR, had really spent very, very little time in a headset before joining the company. And being able to train and onboard somebody with those design principles and being able to see everything that they're seeing makes it a lot easier for, again, somebody who's a VR headset novice to pick up the hardware and the functionality. Now, I know we're all VR enthusiasts here, but for many of our clients, they don't have VR headsets, or maybe their clients don't have VR headsets. So we also have a fairly robust desktop application that allows you to join a meeting directly in the wild without needing to have access to a headset. So what you guys will all see when we jump into the demo part of the presentation is, at least again for the beginning part of the session, I will join via desktop, so you'll be able to see it from that point of view, with Austin joining in VR. Okay, and then of course, I don't need to talk too much.
I have a very short question, because I'm not remembering precisely if did I have to download something before? I don't remember. The last days were okay, good, because I was like, oh my god, didn't I download it? Didn't I get this email or something? So okay, I'm fine. Okay, then I will be easy to join in VR. So.
Yeah, no, we're just doing screen share today, but you all will get the idea of, again, how the collaboration works in the application. I don't need to go over what VR is with you guys and how you'll use VR to access the space, because you all know about that already. We do have an A as well. We'll show you or talk a little bit about that when we get into the demonstration, but really that's this notion of being able to, you know, blend the physical and the digital can be really helpful, again, you know, when we're talking about any sort of spatial designers being able to take, you know, a look at a model of, you know, a new building or a space, and being able to overlay that the physical and the digital together can be really, really helpful, you know, in the construction and in the AEC space. So that's not actually the end of the session, but it is the end of my Google Slides. So what I'm going to do next is jump into.
Awesome. And as we're getting into VR, I'd also just like to say, Seb, I saw your question in the chat. Anyone else, feel free to post those questions in the chat as you think of them, and then we'll try to get to them at the Q&A at the end of this.
Thanks, Austin. So did I, again, the screen sharing, y'all can see the desktop application now?
Yeah, we can.
Great. Okay, so this is the desktop version of the Wild. So when you think about how the Wild is organized, it's going to be organized into teams, and then each team will have projects, and then each project will have spaces. And things like assets and collections can be shared across spaces within a project. So here's my demo team in the Wild. And these are all of the various projects that I have access to. We created a specific project for this event today, right here, where we imported some various spaces into this project. So we're going to start in rapid prototype, and then we'll move into our Revit example, and then move into Stadium. The assets and collections, these are basically any 2D or 3D content or assets that you bring in. So that could be, you know, if you're an interior designer, that could be, you know, stock couches, or, you know, chairs, or anything that you like to use to dress up your interior designs. To, again, any sort of 2D content that you want to bring in, pictures or things like that.
I will say, since this kind of does touch on Seb's question of what specific file format we support, when it comes to 3D file types, we do support standard formats such as GLTF, GLB, and SKP formats. We're really focused on direct integrations with Revit and BIM 360. So that's primarily where our support comes from. But we also do other common formats such as FBX, OBJ, 3DS, and so forth. We do not currently support OFML, but then with our 2D format, we have video, MP4, and so forth, as we'll see in the space.
Thanks. Oh, and then also, if you're, so as Austin just mentioned, you know, we've got some workflows directly from Revit and BIM 360, but you can also create a space from scratch, or from using, you know, starting with a 3D model by clicking this new option right here, and then importing a 2D or a 3D asset. But let's go ahead and look at some spaces that have already been created. The first space that we're going to go into is rapid prototype. So if I want to go into this space as, again, a desktop viewer, I'm going to go ahead and just click here. And it's going to take me, and I'm going to just mute it in the wild. It's going to take me directly into this space. Oh, and let me just pan out a little bit so that I've got a better view. So this is what we call our workshop. Within our workshop, what we'll have the ability to do is see again that, that model at a high level. There's Austin already in VR in the space, and we can see your video as well. So here's me, or here is again the ability to fly through and look around using the desktop viewer. I could use my controls on my keyboard, or I can use an Xbox controller, which is what I'm doing now. So when you've got this little, you've got this key right here that will tell you how to navigate around the desktop if that's new to you, but I can also, I think, hide that so we don't need to look at it. So now what we can do is we can go down and check out this space, and I can either teleport myself as a desktop viewer down into that space, or when Austin gets down there, he can actually use the people tool to bring me down and meet him there.
Yeah, and one of the things we like to do when we're starting in these meetings is in this workshop mode, we have kind of a dollhouse view of whatever model we're looking at. So we can start and just have that high level overview as we're looking into it. But using the controllers in VR, I can grab to pull myself around. I can also just teleport straight into the model. And then you can see it brings me down into here. Likewise, I can change my scale similar to what a lot of us are similar to seeing with Tilt Brush to easily move around. But I'm actually going to grab your view from Emily using our people tool. And that just pops you wherever I'm at and brings you into the view with me. So that kind of brings us, now that we're into this space, I can just kind of show you a view of what our tool set looks like. This is that concept I was telling you about. Everything I see, you see. Anytime I pull up a user interface, everyone will see the same things that are popping up. So right now I'm on that basic Explore tool. But we have a lot of great tools that are for prototyping or sketching as we go along. So for instance, I'm going to pull up here and Emily can follow as I scale up. This is our quick massing tool. It's called Mass It. And what it lets us do is just very quickly spatially sketch concepts as we're looking at this. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to see what it looks like to create some slats on this roof. I can just very quickly copy these over, slide it over, and then within seconds, we have an idea of what that looks like. So,
what's really interesting, and what's really interesting also about this space that I wanted to mention is this space. So we created this space to include in our demonstrations to replicate this idea of like a war room or an idea room that people have in their offices, where they, put up lots of sticky notes and, lots of writing on whiteboards and things like that. What's cool about this space is it didn't actually even start from, a SketchUp or a Revit model. It was all created using existing assets within our content library and using that mass tool like Austin is showing us right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you can see how quickly it is just to throw a wall up, throw a floor down. And then actually, Emily, if you'll follow me a little further in addition to those kind of boring gray masses that we have, we also have the ability to bring materials in, as you'll see over here. So using our paint tool, I can sample these and very quickly apply it to this wall to see what that looks like in real time at real scale. So that's just a great way to kind of mess around with these materials. In addition, you'll also see that we have some examples of these 2D, the MP4s and PNG files in here. And using our sketch tool, it is awesome, kind of like that war room idea, to just kind of sketch as we go along, give our ideas on what we like in here, and also leave comments as we go along. I agree with this chair. And then you just put the comments right onto those tags. Similarly, we also have a grab tool that lets us slide stuff around, move it at scale. We can copy. what everything that I'm moving with my controllers, Emily sees at the same time. And it looks like she actually hopped in here with me in VR. So you can see what it looks like to have two people in the same view. And again, Emily and I are across the country right now, but we are physically looking at each other. We have the same body language. And this is actually really helpful for when we're communicating in VR. It creates a sense of presence that you would not otherwise have over your standard 2D collaboration. So I can see Emily
Austin,
share up right over here. Oh, a question?
Austin, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a group of friends who are all architects, and for sure I will tell them about your tool, but they will for sure ask me immediately how easy they will be able to put their own models into your platform. Like, let's say they are building, they are planning a new flat, they are used to their tools. Have you implementation for traditional architect tools, what I can't name right now, but these people will ask me. So you, yes, you have.
Yeah, so that's the and we can certainly talk more about this in the Q&A also, but that's you know, what Austin was mentioning, you know, during the PowerPoint is we have some direct integrations with Revit and with BIM 360, which are standard tools that are used within the architectural world. So within Revit, which is a common 3D modeling application, there's actually an add-in that will allow you to take a 3D model directly from Revit and create a space in the wild. So it's a pretty seamless workflow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I wanted to show here is just, again, you know, to piggyback on what Austin was talking about, in terms of us being able to interact with each other and see each other's body language, we can also interact with objects within this space together. So I could hand this chair to Austin, he can pick it up and take it himself from me.
As soon as you let go, Emily.
Oh,
gotta
let go of it.
Yep. Or I can just get one for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't try to sit in it.
Exactly. And so as you saw, I tossed the chair right there. To delete anything, you can just very quickly throw away. And likewise, we have a back button to undo any of the changes that we make in here. Also, as Emily said, all these changes are persistent. So anytime I make a sketch or I leave a comment or whatever, it in real time syncs this with the cloud so that we can make sure everything is securely saved with whatever we're doing in here. Also, let's say we were giving, we kind of had just like a work through of, we looked through these ideas and we like the comments that we made together. Using this camera tool over here, I can save a view of anything that I want to focus on and then hit that little snapshot button, and then it will save a JPEG either to my desktop when I'm saved on, or on your Oculus Quest that you can share with your team for later. Also, those little comment cards that you see over there, those all export into a PDF of any specific changes we'd like to see in the space.
Austin, let's show everybody how we move from space to space within a project.
Sure.
And go into that Revit example.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up over here what's called our content library, and you should be able to see everything that I'm looking at here. But this is all those projects that we had in that desktop view. I have access to this in VR as well. And this just makes it kind of eliminates that friction of like having to take off the headset, having to move with your assets. This is a way that we can do it all within the wild. So we've created a collection here of spaces that we like to see. And so what I can do is actually take the next space that I'd like to go to, and it creates a portal that I then can take both myself and whoever is in the space with me. So here we go.
Awesome.
And so once we're loaded in here, again, we're right back in that workshop view of our next space, still have the headsets on, and it can very quickly just go through the sequence of ideas that we want to share together.
All right. Austin, you let us know when you're ready to meet down in the model itself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to teleport myself down in here so you can see what it looks like having someone in the model from the workshop. But this is a model that we imported from Revit, which is one of those common architecture work tools that it has a direct integration into the wild. And so I've set up through this space specific views that I'd like to take you in using what was called that tour tool that Emily was alluding to earlier. So what I'm going to do is start a guided tour that then takes you right into a frame. And you see how you teleported right into that side view of the house there?
Yeah.
This is a great tool for people who are new to VR or maybe viewing on desktop like Emily is right now. And I can show you very precise keyframes throughout this space. So, and so I'm actually going to teleport out in front of what you're seeing. So you should be able to see me standing over here. I'm taking you along with me. And these are the frames that I've set up throughout this space. So this is the first one. I'm going to teleport us to this next one over here. And again, I'm still right in front of you. You can still see my view. And then I can interact with this space as I move around, showing you different parts of this presentation. I can also just use my controller to cycle right to the next view. And so in this instance, I've taken some measurements of perhaps a doorway using our measure tool that, let me pull that out for you. This is what our measure tool looks like. You can just very quickly snap to surface any pieces of your space you'd like to look at. Moving through the tour, we also have this view here that what we can do is using, it's called our inspect tool. You can inspect different content within here and kind of view some of the metadata that some of the architects and BIM managers like to look at. A lot of this is a little more complex for the average VR user, but it's still great to know what those constraints are for the content in here. And so, yeah, I'm going to take you at the end of this tour, the side view of the house over here. This tour tool is great for bringing people along, but I can always end the guided tour so that then you can freely move around from within that frame.
Oh, I love that tour feature. It's as we mentioned, we released it on Tuesday this week, so it's pretty exciting, and it's going to be a great addition for our customer base.
Sure. And while I have you here in this side view of the house, I will also show you another one of our tools that we're pretty fond of called the visibility tool. And a lot of time when people are working in software like SketchUp or Revit, they'll have specific layers or families of content. So anyone who's worked in 3D knows the importance of having different layers for visibility. So I can manually turn on or off any of these layers to show the full picture of whatever we're talking about. And you can see in real time what that is that I'm triggering. So there's never that confusion of like, oh, like, do we have the roof on? Like, can we just make sure that's all working together? So again, just another seamless workflow to look at that together. You ready to head to the next
direct?
Oh,
sorry.
Question?
Yeah, is that the direct model from Revit? Like, how long would it take to convert model into wild? And then the interface that you just shown, is it similar to like the name of the layers? They all the same as in the Revit model?
Yes, yes. This is directly imported from Revit. We have a direct integration that will take this model, and within a matter of a few minutes, it depends on the file size. And typically we do like to make section views of heavier Revit files so that it moves a little seamlessly. But this one particularly comes over in just like 1 to 2 minutes. All of your family layers that are in Revit translate over to that visibility tool that I showed you. So you don't have to do the work of manually assigning it. It all translates over in addition to all of the materials that you've set within Revit.
And that model that you shows, would it look the same on the iOS device and Oculus Quest, or you need to have like 3 different models for each device?
Since this is a shared workspace, each device can access the wild. We just use one model that every device can access the wild into because it's hosted in the cloud. So you only need to take your Revit model, do our direct integration into the wild, and then anyone with any headset or device, you can also access this through your iPad, your iOS, or desktop. We'll see the same view.
Okay, so I basically need to transfer my model to cloud, and then it become available to any device. And
Correct.
Would it matter if the cloud, like AWS, or it's a private corporate cloud?
So it is through AWS. We're looking to transition into a private server, and maybe Emily, if you have any more comments to share?
Yeah,
on
I
that?
mean, you just today it is, we host on AWS, and for larger enterprise customers, we get requests sometimes for a private cloud deployment, which we can accommodate. We just haven't done that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How is it with when you have, for example, a client with you in the model you prepared before, you do a change, are you able to export it again to Revit that you can go through other workflows the company's normally used to?
That's a great question. You can export the model as, I think it's as an OBJ. There is no direct integration back into Revit. So typically the workflow that we see is any changes or modifications that need to be made, usually identified using the comment tool, and then basically those comments are exported as a PDF, and then any of those changes would need to be done in the Revit application. But what's cool is once you make those changes in the Revit application, you just update the model, and again, it's a pretty seamless process, and then those changes will come back into the space based on, again, the corrections that you've made in the application itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we like to keep the Revit models as like the one source of truth. And it is easy, especially if you have multiple people in one space. If there are some modifications that are made that not everyone knows about, like say you move a chair or move one piece of the model, we don't want that to affect the root file, but we can at least see those changes that were made and then create the changes later.
Can you translate those changes back to Revit seamlessly, or you need to do some additional manual work?
No,
You would need to manually,
as a PDF.
yeah.
Then you have to do it, repeat this changes in Revit, as I understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, unless manually re-importing the model that you exported from the wild. So Emily, you ready to head into the next space?
Yeah. We have one more space to show you all.
All right, so I'm going to pull up that content library again, and this is a slightly larger one that we've created, so it might take a second for us to load, but this is an example of the scale that we can work with in VR.
So then I can ask maybe a filmmaker's question between. So the Revit model gets translated into an OBJ. So the OBJ I can import into any Unity or Unreal, and I can use it as a film location?
I don't know. I don't know the exact specification on that part of the workflow, but we can get you guys some additional information about it. And I hope that I'm being accurate in my comment that it is actually OBJ is what we export to, but I'll get clarification on that for you all.
Mm-hmm.
Austin also,
because that would be very interesting. Michael, you are very.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone, if you're hearing me, but Martin, FBX and OBJ are natively supported inside of Unity. So if either one that it exports, yeah, to answer your question, you can take that into Unity, but you have to do your own lighting in Unity.
Yeah, okay. This with the lighting I'm aware of, but the question is, are the textures coming in proper format? Can you export the OBJ in certain sizes or scales accordingly to the receiving engine that you can actually work with? It's a little bit filmmakers nerdy stuff, but it was just popping up in my brain.
Yeah, yeah. So the scaling, you choose the scaling. You can scale it differently inside of Unity when you import an OBJ or an FBX model. The materials presumably would be something you take from the source file that has it. So whatever folder has that, has the actual mesh. If there are textures, the textures are mapped to it, and they usually are in the same folder. So you have to get all those assets.
Michael, your mic level is quite low. You either need to speak up or change your settings in your computer.
Now you disappeared completely.
Yeah.
Austin, did I get lost somehow on the way to that new
So-
space?
Yeah, I portaled you in, but your desktop view has refreshed. See if you can just move on your keyboard, or maybe if it's your F1 setting.
Huh.
There's also a chance it might have switched you back to the VR view if you're using tethered right now. But if not, actually, you know, I'll go ahead and share my screen so you guys can get a view of what this looks like from the first person VR perspective, just because it is a little different from that desktop view. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Let me know if you guys can see this. Is that working for y'all?
No, I think we're still in mine.
Are you guys able to see my screen share with the first person
No,
controller there?
I think we're still seeing
Not yet.
Emily's.
Yeah,
Still
and
on
God, I lost my my mouse.
Oh man. Emily, if you go ahead and stop your screen share, I can just pop mine on there and then we can take a look
Yeah,
at
I
the
can't
first
find
group.
my mouse to stop my screen
Oh,
share. I know.
Michael, is there a way you could maybe manually
Yeah. Let me
take her screen off?
Let me see actually. Hold on one second.
I mean, this is the beauty of real-time demos, right?
Yes.
Live
So,
demonstrations.
Yeah, I should be able to deactivate others, but I don't seem to be able to. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, there we
Awesome.
Great.
Okay. And then if you can just turn that back on and I will share my view of the wild. Okay, let's see. Is this working for you guys?
Yeah, it's working now.
Okay, awesome. So right now, this is kind of what it looks like in first person. Some of us are familiar working in VR. It can be kind of choppy and a little nauseating to see someone's first person view. So we have an option in our desktop. I'm going to hit our F1 button. And what this does, if I can click that real quick. Okay, so you see how it kind of made that little glitch real quick. And now we have our camera smoothing so that it's a little easier to see. This is a feature that we like to do anytime we're recording or giving presentations in VR. But you can see, again, this is what it looks like in VR from my point of view. That's what our tools look like. But right now, with the Explore tool, I'm actually going to take us into this giant stadium, and I teleported us in. And now you can just kind of get a sense of the scale of what it looks like to be looking in some of these models in first person here. So this is a stadium that we imported through here. And we like to use this as an example of some of the work that we can do with branding for experiential designers, branding designers. This is a feature that we call custom apps. And what we've imported here is a web view of a controller that controls different web views using web technology. So in this case, it's pretty simple. We're just using a button that then data syncs with these other views so that we can see what it looks like to have different branding of these different teams in here. So if I click on the Patriots, and again, these are American teams. Unfortunately, we didn't get any teams for you guys here, but very quickly, it will change the view of all these pieces in here. And I'm seeing this in real scale. It is at the full grand level of what it looks like in real life. This is awesome for our environmental designers who need to very quickly see changes on the fly at the scale. And you can create any custom app using any basic web technology, JavaScript, HTML, etc., using controllers that communicate with each other, such as this. This is just one example of many that we've done. But we also have people who like to import web views of dashboards that sync live so you can see it in that shared workspace, as well as web input, such as like a retail space if you want to test what that physical input is like in the context of your environment. So this is just a quick little view of our custom apps, again, in the scale of this stadium.
A big stadium.
Yes. With that,
I have a question to.
Yeah.
I have a question to the. We have in the past when we have visited several different platforms, they were often can we spatial record a session? Like, for example, Engage has this option of spatial recording, and you can have someone is there, does something, and in the end, you can even review what this person did in the spatial recording.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely we get the answer to this, yes, we can this as well. So this is on the first question. And the second question, if it's not possible to spatial record, is it possible to record a video inside or instead of a photo shot?
As of right now, we don't have any built-in recording features. But one common workflow that we do use is just using OBS as a simple screen share. And similar to what Emily did, either from that desktop view of the third person of the space or a first person view from VR. It is pretty simple to just capture that screen for presentations. Very similar to what we're doing here with Zoom. You can just very quickly share screen and then present to a large group of people. So currently, no, nothing natively, but that is a pretty easy workaround with
absolutely
simple sharing tools.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is really, I mean, from a product demonstration point of view, this is what we wanted to show you all today. So, I mean, this is a perfect time, I mean, just to segue into Q&A and discussion.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, great. We have a handful of questions, some of which were already asked and answered. Andre had earlier asked about cross-platform functionality, different hardware platforms, and I'm not sure if that was already addressed, if I missed it. So, the question was like iOS and Android types of devices and such. Could you kind of just list which major ones you guys are supporting?
Yeah, I mean, it's desktop, whether it's iOS or PC. As far as VR platform, or I'm sorry, headset platforms are concerned, Oculus Quest, Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, Windows Mixed Reality, looking to potentially offer support for the Pico Neo 2 in 2021. And then Austin, what version does of the iPhone and iPad does the AR app work on?
I think
it's like 10 and higher.
Yeah, 10 and higher. Anything with the AR kit works in that. But one also common use we're seeing with iOS is using the LiDAR scanning. And we don't currently have a built-in tool for LiDAR, but it is very easy to use tools such as Polycam, using iOS to create a 3D model of just scanning your office or whatever, and then can very quickly be imported into the wild. So that is another benefit we've seen with the iOS. In addition to that, we also support augmented reality with iOS. So if you were to hold your tablet or phone with using your camera, and unfortunately, we don't have one available for this demo, but there are videos on our website you can check out of that augmented reality. But you can view your space in the wild within the context of a physical location.
Then I have additionally to when you mentioned LiDAR, as I experiment a lot with volumetric, I experiment with the new Azure Kinects. Can you handle a direct Azure stream, like a volumetric stream of like a live stream of this kind of device? Input?
The live stream with LiDAR, not currently. It's pretty difficult to have that live stream as we're going. It does take a little bit to scan in a space, but I can actually show you very quickly in the wild an example of something that we did create using very simple Polycam. This took us about 2 minutes to scan the entire space, and wow, into the wild here. So as most of us know, like currently with LiDAR, it's not super polished at this point, but this is kind of an idea of what that looks like using about that 2-minute scan. This is actually a part of our office in the wild. And what we did here is we wanted to see what it looks like to import some kind of model that we can prototype upon. So this is a 3D model of a fire suppression valve, and you're able to make comments in real time using the sketch tool and so forth. And then using augmented reality, we can place this back in the office. So if we were to just turn off the scan of this, we then have this at scale that we can place back in using augmented reality. So that is the live component that we can do, but it's just that initial scan in that takes a little bit of time.
Okay, and we had another question, which was about whether or not you support high quality rendering of the work that you do inside the platform and like offline, like when after you finish the VR, I guess, session.
Emily, I'm comfortable taking that question if that's all right with you.
Sure, please.
In terms of high quality rendering, I mean, certainly there are amazing applications out there like Enscape that are cutting the edge with the quality of rendering that they can put out. Because the Wild is focused in real-time collaboration, we're trying to focus on making these as performant as possible. Right now, our desktop view does have the option for you can import high quality materials, such as if you have a photogrammetry scan, there is an option to turn that on, but it does make it a little slower if you're using like an Oculus Quest or something. We are looking in the future for options for a little more polished rendering experience, but often the workflow we see people doing is kind of doing their changes and prototyping in the Wild and then handing it over to something like Enscape. Emily, did anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, that is just to, clarify. It's, it's not, the lane that we're in is not a 3D rendering lane. But again, we play very nicely with Enscape, and the workflow that Austin described is one that our clients use pretty regularly.
Okay. And I have a question I had asked previously, in a different earlier session a couple months ago, but not with this group, and I wanted to throw that out here. I know you guys are focusing on the architecture, engineering, and construction sectors, but it just seems like this type of tool, as you referenced, any type of spatial designer, but you think of maybe people who are like wedding planners, you think of set designers and stuff like that. And do you have any like anecdotes or any type of examples of other use cases like this you might share?
I have a pretty cool one actually, and there's a story on our website you can check out on our blog, but we do have a lot of experiential designers that use the Wild to kind of just get those ideas out at scale. And we actually had an instance where we collaborated with the Neon Museum, which is, it's an event based out of Las Vegas. And in this particular instance, Tim Burton and his team did a takeover of the Neon Museum. And he used a lot of creative ideas that they wanted to very quickly just see the scale of in VR. So he and his team actually ended up using the Wild as a way of seeing what it looks like to add these giant sculptures or to add some of his concepts using a photogrammetry scan of the Neon Museum. So that's a really cool story I would recommend checking out on our website at thewild.com.
Yeah, I mean, the only other, comment I would make is, I think that, and again, in this with this group of people, VR hardware and the technology is just, especially in a B2B space, is taking, I think, longer really to get any traction than we all, potentially have been hoping for. The reason why we focused on, architects and in the AEC space, initially, is really because they had already they were already looking at VR to improve their workflows, and they've gotten kind of over that threshold of being willing to adopt new hardware. Where just like some of the, I think what like event planning, wedding planning, there's so many different potential use cases for VR. I think it's just, again, it's a matter of hardware affordability and adoption just, within the marketplace. We do have a customer that uses the Wild for crime scene recreation, which is pretty interesting. So when they're going to, it's defense attorneys looking to be able to show something as part of, that defense case for their clients, but lots of possibilities.
Yeah. Thankfully,
Oh, sorry, go
the
ahead, Austin.
accessibility of Oculus Quest is making it so easy for people to start experimenting in VR. And we only know that's going to continue to be more accessible for more creatives in the future.
All right, and Andre had a couple questions. One, I guess Andre, were you asking kind of if hand tracking was also supported on the Quest side? Is that what you were asking about the controllers?
Yeah, well, I noticed that the embodiment of the person in VR is like represented only with the controls. Is it correct, or it's just a feature on the which I so have you? Can you see your hands and or legs in VR?
As of currently, no. We just focus on the controllers, and we've been intentional about not focusing on hand tracking as of quite yet, because it's difficult to create a polished experience so you can have the same granular control over your content. It certainly has its convenience, and it could potentially be something we're focusing on in the future. But as of right now, our avatar style is created for transparency of the space. More so, you kind of saw those little slats where you can see through it. We're trying not to create too much realism at this current moment with our elbows and legs and so forth, so that we bring all the attention into the space.
No, your avatars are amazing. I love them a lot. Conceptually, they're great.
Thank you.
And Andre, you also wanted to learn a little bit more about the tour option, so it's this new feature. So
yeah, so you mentioned that like there's several points in the space where you can bring people. So like, would it be 360 bubble, or it's a moving camera, and then like, can you just elaborate about that?
Yeah, and actually, you know what? I think I'm just gonna hop back into the wild so that I can show this start to finish with you guys very quickly. So I'm gonna share my screen with you again. We have, going back into VR. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm actually in the wrong model. So let's go back to that Revit example so that we can look through the ones that we created. So you guys can see my first person, correct? Yeah. Turn off that HUD there. Cool. So as we pull out our tours tool over here, what this does is, move over here, it creates a 2D view of anything that you're looking at. You can very easily drag this around. You can scale it in or out. Likewise, if I wanted to create one with a larger scale, I would just add one right over here. And that then adds, in this panel I'm looking at, a frame amongst the sequence of frames that I've set up along the tour that I can then teleport to. So for myself, if I just want to move to one frame myself, I can just click on that frame and it takes me to that view. But if I want to bring other people along with me there in the space, I'll hit the start guided tour over here, and you'll that then brings everyone into the space in that view at the same time. And then you can very quickly end it. Does that answer the question? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think I understand that you bring the people from point to point, and and the direction of gaze would be exactly as you said it in your frame, and then from that point they can move around or do something else.
So we actually, while they're in a tour, we're keeping it fixed currently so that we can make sure we're all focusing on the same view. We can very quickly hit that ends guided tours to give people the flexibility to look around after that. But just so that we can make sure we're all sharing the same precise viewpoint, particularly in the case of engineering and BIM management, when we want to have like very granular views, we like to have that control for people who are in desktop, but it can very easily be taken off so you can move the view around again.
Okay, so that means that you translate that frame to someone else's computer and then synchronize this frame. It's not for the person in VR in the headset. It's for the 2D screen.
It is for both, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Were there any last questions from anybody so far in the audience who hasn't had their question asked or answered? And it seems like not. So I think we're at the end of our evening, and I guess this session for you guys in the morning. I want to thank you very much on behalf of all of us and our community, Emily and Austin, for your time and for sharing the wild with us. So for people who maybe want to reach out, is there a contact email you guys would prefer that we share? Martin mentioned some perhaps some film colleagues or no architecture colleagues. That might be
I'll just put my email address in. Let's make sure I get it right. I just put my email address in the chat. I would be a primary point of contact for anybody looking for additional information about the application. You know, and thank you for inviting us to present. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was our pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you very much,
All right,
everyone.
thank you very much.
Thanks,
See you all.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.